Okay, so going back to prepare, you reap what you sow, right? Reap backwards is pair. You pair what you sow. That goes back to reproduction. There's no way to avoid the reproduction. And in the end of the Bible, I think it's verse 22:16 around there, where Jesus says, I am the bright morning star. He spells it out for you, that this has to do with the Egyptian, perfecting the Egyptian perspective. All right. So I'm behind schedule. I'm going to have to make a whole nother video for the Horus variations. All right, so the Pharaoh spirit direction is up, the selfish direction, the self direction, eugenic direction is down, right? Prophet rely on connection to God and not a contradiction, okay? He must pray to God and outmaneuver mind control, and man suffers dearly for what they do to the prophets, saints, and men of God because of God's code, including the Logos. All right. I'll just skip this page for now. All right, moving on. Okay, paganism, paganism, right? They're concerned with the money, the food, the harvest, right? Paganism, the expert and the export and the expor when you do the word play, okay? And the exper, going back to bubistis, and X marks the spot. And Abydos, abode as, Abydos, Osiris's cult center. So the moneylenders were the traders, okay? And animal sacrifice was outlawed, is part of the Bible, right? The moneylenders, they're giving them pigeons or something like that to sacrifice, and Jesus was upset, and he starts making a big scene. Okay, of course, laws against killing animals in Egypt, there's a lot of parallels you can draw. Certainly, I've gone over the 3200 BCE Egyptian beginning, where Abraham comes about halfway, 1600 BCE, and how it eventually culminates in Serapis and Greco-Roman worship, which comes, eventually comes to zero, where it is the birth of Christ, right? So Babylon, Ba-Bel-On, Ba-Baal-On, going back to the Ba of Baal. Okay, Egypt, when you add the Ka in the Egypt, when you consider Babylon as Ba-Bil-On, you say, what happens if I add Ka in Egypt? You get Cage up, or you get Key up. All right, think about the color of the pyramids and how it relates to the sand and the sun. All right, the connotation. The O member is the sun cycle, the reproductive cycle, the sun, and so on. Okay, moving on. Okay, so when you add, Ra-Harketi, when you add Set and Haraketi, and you do the wordplay backwards, you get karate with an S, right? Karates, and of course, it is designed for people with a certain body type, going back to the Ba, right? Most of these martial arts, there's an emphasis on the Ba and not using your own spirit to adjust it yourself, but do it their way, which gives their body types the upper hand. See, so there's the karates, is the T's for the ka, because you can't really get into your own body type because you're forced to do it their way. So it's also karate, right? Set, Haraketi. You say, well, why add Set at first? Because in one of the mythologies of Horus, Set is favored by Ra Haraketi. So he's really Set Haraketi. Okay. So, moving on. See, addiction, right? Addict, addiciare, means to favor, to devote or surrender oneself to something habitually or obsessively. Okay. Habitat, sacred ground, Egypt training, spared while they spiritually and mentally, perhaps physically sparred. And of course, the babies were killed. Okay, so they were sparing people in martial arts combat by spiritually and physically sparring the stick fighting priests of Osiris and so on. And of course, they were at odds with the people who wrestled. And of course, in the Bible, there's spiritual wrestling to resist the temptations of the devil, putting on the armor of God and whatnot. And then there is physical wrestling, which is focusing on the flesh. And in sparring, you're focusing on the spirit and the transferable skills to see who has the greatest application of martial arts. And there's no way around that. That's how it should be done. You need to work with your body and to figure out what's best for you and how to get in and to strike them first. And if you don't do it that way, especially as a revolutionary, you're an idiot, because how are you going to defend yourself from someone taller with a knife if you can't strike them first? I mean, it's just common sense. Just there's no way around it. All right, so you think about Werner von Braun, right? Remember, the W and the V are the V is the W is said as a V in German, right? Just like there's the sun, S-U-N, and I believe the sun in German is S-O-N-N-E. So Warner one broom, Warner Bros, right? Warner one broom, the witch's broom. Okay, and the Nazis versus the media companies, the entertainment companies, Universal Studios, and them that roll with the Jews, right? And the Warner Brothers were known for rolling with the Nazis, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so read Revelation 17 to understand how the wine relates to the blood. 17:15, God's well, the water hole, the water, excuse me, the water that the horse sits on are the peoples and multitudes. Going back to my argument of the well of God and God's will, of course, it goes back to the water that the horse sits on are the peoples and the multitudes. That's reproduction, right? So the whore is fornicating with the kings, and the people tasting her fornication by accepting their reproductive culture. Okay, so 18:2, they talk about the unclean and hateful birds, the foul spirits versus the fair O and the Spirit of God. Okay, so I'm doing pretty good on time. Let me just go ahead and start to cover the Horus. Okay. So on my wall here, bear with me. I'm going to go through some Horus stuffs. Okay. So basically, let me put this down for a second. All right. Basically, Here Haru, Harmakis, seek a Ra, seek our Ra. This is the wordplay. The Sphinx aligned with a man, falcon, or ram head, depending on the perspective, right? And most likely the most proper perspective is actually a hawk head. The falcon is a version of a hawk, right? And it is a specific version used by a specific group of people with occult meaning, and is constantly used, from my perspective, to fall for the Khan. Khan's whore, the falcon, fall Khan, full Khan. That is the best Khan they have, the fool's Khan. Horus Latinized, hor is face. The sky god and the sun and moon, his eyes at first. His first known version, according to the book, was he was a sky god, and the sun and the moon were his eyes. Okay, pay close attention. The falcon came to symbolize a warrior god and victorious leader. Consideration of his preeminence in turn led to the belief that the king was his earthly embodiment. This belief later hardened into dogma, and the kings took the name of Horus as one of their own. This is a quote. At the same time, the ruling kings were now followers of Ra, so Horus became identified with the sun. So when Egypt was unified, Horus was a warrior god. Okay, the falcon came. The falcon. This is what the book said. Really, it's the hawk. The book is mistaken in some places. Okay, you have to really use divine insight. Good spell. Go figure it out. Go figure out ulterior motives. You can tell that the guy going blind, who's having trouble with his reproductive systems in embarrassing ways, and is being shunned by everyone, who lives with his parents at 36, is not the guy lying to you, most likely. But don't automatically assume that either. Think hard. I promise to God, I'm doing the best I can here. At least I'm trying to. I promise to God. Okay, the sky god, the sun and moon, his eyes at first. The falcon, really the hawk, came to symbolize a warrior god. This has to do with their explanation about where the falcon symbol came from. Okay, Chuku is the sky god, right? The sky god, the sun and the moon, right? Horus at first was a sky god. My name specifically means the sky god. And Niger means black, and Osiris is the lord of the black. And Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa. Now add Niger above it and the countries around it, and do the math. Do the math. Add, go spell, go figure out. Even the symbol of the cross is a plus symbol, right? That's why you can also remove the T when you go spell. Okay, the X of Osiris, the X, a multiplication, right? Horus, be fruitful and multiply. Osiris, regeneration, the X, okay? And people who died were called, something X, Bob X, that's how you refer to them when they passed away in Egypt, okay? Of course, Bob probably wasn't a name, but moving on. Horus, the son of Atum, or of Ra, or of Jeb and Nut, are solar, versus son of Isis is Osirian. So Horus, when he's the son of Ra, okay, or Atum, or of Jeb and Nut, is a solar deity, a sun deity, whereas the emphasis is more on the son of Osiris and Isis, and Osiris is the lord of the black. This had me thrown off for a long time until recently. I kept trying to say, well, why are there different perspectives? It turns out that the Osirian perspective is perhaps more suspect, but certainly they both connect to Nigeria, and we'll get into that later. Har-Orisis, Har-Ware. Ware was the face, the great one, god of light, whose eyes were the sun and moon, the right eye the sun. Mekin-Tereti, okay, two eyes, okay, or Mekin-Tien-Erti, he on whose brow there are no eyes. So he whose brow there are two eyes, or he whose brow there are no eyes. And this has to go with the story about him being blinded. Okay, he's the patron of the blind. Okay, this is another version of Horus. Har-Orisis, Har-Oris, or Har-Ware. Hor-Nubti, Horus, vanquisher of Set. Okay, the polis, the pole as, right? Who controls the reproduction? This goes back to Steve Rogers' name and how they want to control the staves. Staves, raw hours, right? We're going to control the reproduction. Steve Rogers, Captain America. Cap in America. Cap on America. Okay? And kept in America. So Edfu is said to be Hurakan Polis. And later on, in my research before I really examined this book, Nekin, I believe, is also referred to as Hurakan Polis. And of course, you have the Khan, right? Nekan, Nekin. When the truth of the matter is it starts with Nekin and goes up instead of starting with northern Egypt and coming down. And it's right there in the wordplay. I didn't name these words. Black people didn't give you these words. This is a Latin language given to you by Western historians and perhaps Jewish ones, white Jewish ones, not black people. Okay? Keep that in mind. Who did the wordplay and who didn't? Go spell and go figure out, based on their bullshit perspective, where they're lying and why, and put things together. Don't just guess. Go out of your way to put it together. Okay? So, Horus Behedeti. This is one of the tattoos I have. They did my tattoos wrong to play me out like a bitch. And it was hard to find a Horus version that was nice. The best might be in Hatshepsut, her temple. They have an interesting version. And I regretted it later when they gave me like a gay-looking, when I really examined it later on, a gay-looking golden Horus tattoo and Horus Behedeti. And when I asked for the Zulu warrior and the guy to draw it himself, he kind of played me out. Anyway, Horus Behedeti. Remember, ask yourself, in the flag of America, where is the sun? Going back to Hathor, who takes Ra, in the Greco-Roman version, he takes Ra to the sky and the moon. I'm out of time. Let me just shoot through this, okay? Horus Behedeti, okay? Form of Horus the Elder, worshipped in the Western Delta on Bedet, okay? Ad Obi, when you do it backwards, Ad Obi. This became a movement south to Edfu, according to them, which is bullshit. Story of King's son in form of winged disc to strike enemies. Crocodile, not serpent, and hippo plotters in one version. Serpent and a son of Osiris in another. Okay, another one is Har-Saphis. Okay, he's at Heracleopolis Magna in the Fayum. Again, Hercules, they're connected. Okay, Her is Chef, is also another name of Har-Saphis. Okay, first intermediate period. All right, so this is the first intermediate period. So now we're leaving the kind of African period, and other races are kind of getting their say in, is one way to look at it. But certainly it's more cultural than racial. But to some people it's more racial, as you can imagine. Okay, so there's a ram deity and water. He's a water deity and a fertility deity and a ram-headed deity. He who is on the lake. Okay. This is Lower Egypt, all right? They overcome the Asiatic invaders and united Lower and Middle Egypt. Okay, so remember, there's no sun on the flag. There's stars and stripes. Why is there no sun? Because this is a democracy that's in rebellion to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh isn't an English guy. If you believe that, you're a fucking moron. Just shut the fuck up if that's what you believe and turn it off now, you stupid motherfucker. Think, okay? In their own fucking movies and stuff, they depict Africans as greater warriors. Why did they civilize this thing in Africa and not in Europe? Use your fucking head. Use your head. Don't let them tell you what to think. Use your head. Harmachis, Horus on the horizon. Sphinx, the form most famous and was sculpted out of the living rock near Khephren tomb, 4th dynasty. Sphinxes were usually identified with pharaohs in their immortal aspect, right? The Sphinx, the pharaoh, in his immortal aspect. Harmachis was the sun god aspect of Horus and the repository of the deepest wisdom. Okay, the pharaoh, immortal, deepest wisdom, not a bunch of democracy fucking bitches. And of course, in one of the episodes in Star Wars, you talk about I'm for democracy or whatever. Tutmosis III, 18th dynasty, had a dream. Harmachis Atum Khepri said he would rule on the throne of